Season 1 of SpongeBob SquarePants saw probably the most interesting version of Patrick Star in the entire show. As the world of Bikini Bottom was still finding its rhythm, Patrick wore a lot of different faces, some positive and helpful, while others not so much. Today, we're going to take a look through every Season 1 episode of SpongeBob and rank Patrick's role from peak to bleak. Help Wanted. The first episode of SpongeBob has our energetic protagonist setting out to seek employment from the finest eating establishment in Bikini Bottom. But after doubts start creeping in about his ability to get said job, Patrick steps in to encourage his buddy. He goes full-blown hype man, gives him a motivational speech, reminds him he was destined to get the job, and pushes him out of his comfort zone to be better. We all need a friend like this. He's peak. He's not in the Reef Blower episode, but Tea at the Tree Dome gives him another awesome look. After SpongeBob makes a new friend and wants to impress on their next get-together, he turns to Patrick for advice, and while he doesn't know what air is and sets him up for a rough time, he does teach him how to be classy and win over a lady. He even follows him there as backup, keeps him on track, and drags him back in when he tries to leave, thinking he's being shy and quitting, and then he realizes what air is. He has the best of intentions and is a great pal. We'll go sorta helpful with this one. Bubble Stand. SpongeBob starts selling bubbles and teaching all of his techniques to Patrick, who's not the quickest learner, and they basically just annoy Squidward for 11 minutes. It's not a bad look, he's supporting his buddy's business, and that's about it. Ripped Pants leaves him out again, but the jellyfishing episode brings him back to cause Squidward some more agony. After he's severely injured, the two take him out jellyfishing against his will, and while firmly grasp it is an iconic meme from the show, Patrick's short temper and abuse to Squidward is so unwarranted and just outright mean. And then he burns him with scalding hot soup. Patrick's literally a villain here, a very bad influence. Plankton, an excellent introduction to a classic cartoon bad guy. He takes over SpongeBob's brain and makes him storm through his neighbors' houses, giving Patrick a couple seconds of screen time while he's zonked out. He does nothing though, so bleak. Naughty Nautical Neighbors. Squidward gets annoyed by SpongeBob and Patrick's friendship, decides to sabotage it, and then immediately regrets it when they both try to be his friend instead and keep one-upping each other in more and more obnoxious ways. I would go pretty low with this one, but when Squidward's choking, he steps up and saves his life, which is insanely clutch, so I gotta go at least sorta helpful here. Even if they did end up destroying his house, his life's worth more, right? Boating School. SpongeBob fails his driving test once again, and even though he never asked for his help, Patrick sees his friend struggling and steps up for the assist, which he does to an amazing degree. Over walkie-talkie, he secretly gives SpongeBob all the information he needs to ace the test, and if his own guilt didn't get the best of him in the end, he would have gotten his driver's license. Sure, he was cheating, but Patrick going out of his way to get involved and help this much is a peak look for the guy. Pizza Delivery leaves him behind, but Home Sweet Pineapple has him once again going above and beyond to help his best friend out of a tough time. After nematodes eat through his entire house and he has to move back in with his parents, Patrick encourages him to rebuild the house and helps him throughout the entire construction process. It doesn't end up working out though, so he invites him to stay over at the Rock, again with a poor result, but his heart was in the right place and he did all he could. Also, he looks dapper in this little suit, so it's all around deserving of peak. Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy. SpongeBob and Patrick play dress-up as their favorite superheroes, then find the retirement home they're currently chilling at and meet their idols, who they proceed to irritate the rest of the episode. Elder abuse at its finest. The entirety of Shady Shoals gets fed up with their antics and gives them the boot, which was well-deserved, but Patrick wasn't really taking the lead here. Most of this stuff was enabled by SpongeBob, and he's just along for the ride, so he may have played a part in harming these old people, but he's more of a sidekick. No Pickles doesn't have the Pat Man, but Hall Monitor brings him in for some pretty classic moments. Helping SpongeBob track down the maniac is seemingly pretty helpful, but him not putting two and two together is a very dumb look, though his exchange with the cops is freaking hilarious. He doesn't add to the chaos that SpongeBob causes across town, which is good, but outside of making the viewer laugh, he's just Spongy's sidekick. Jellyfish Jam gives him another day off, but Sandy's rocket makes lots of room for stupidity, and Patrick doesn't waste the opportunity. Sandy makes the mistake of showing SpongeBob her super cool rocket ship, and even says he can go to the moon with her the following day. I mean, sign me up for a free trip to space, dang. After Patrick offers up some alien repellent for the ship, SpongeBob takes him to go apply it, and Patrick just does whatever he wants and is an awful influence. He's playing around with all the mechanisms and goofing around, which encourages SpongeBob to as well, and he accidentally starts the rocket and takes off into quote-unquote space. Then they go around this upside-down Bikini Bottom, capturing everyone and causing all sorts of trouble. This one's a pretty easy placement. Squeaky Boots takes another L, but Nature Pants brings Patrick to his first blatant antagonistic role. SpongeBob wants to leave his cozy life in Bikini Bottom and be one with the jellyfish out in the wild, and it doesn't go the best for him, but Patrick takes the loss of his best friend in an interesting way.
If I can't have you as a friend, I'm gonna make you a trophy!
Yeah, he goes knuckin' fucks and tries to catch his buddy to put on his mantle. Dude's a menace, and I guess in a twisted way, it goes to show how much he really values their friendship. It's not Bleak, but he's a horrid influence. Opposite day, Squidward tells SpongeBob to act completely different than he usually does, so he ropes Patrick into the whole idea, the two have a blast with it, and eventually become their true opposite form, Squidward.
He's Squidward, you're Squidward, I'm Squidward!
These two really screw up Squidward's chances of selling his house, but Patrick's mostly just playing along with SpongeBob and doesn't do all that much himself. Culture shock. Squidward puts on a talent show at the Krusty Krab, and Patrick plays a very minor role as that one dude in the crowd that laughs at every joke, and he keeps making noise every time Squidward tries to talk. It's a small appearance, but don't be that guy. Bad influence. He somehow isn't in the fun episode, even though the song's all about best buddies, and he ignores Mr. Musclebob too, but Squidward the Unfriendly Ghost has him back at it with more cephalopod mistreatment. He not only kicks the shell into Squid's house that ruins this absolute masterpiece, but he also sets it in the sun to completely melt it. I don't think he knew any better, but it's damaging nonetheless. Then they think they killed Squidward, and after he comes out of the bathroom all powdered up, he looks like a ghost, and so the two do whatever he says so they don't get haunted. He makes mistake after mistake to cause this predicament, so I'd say it's on the same tier as Sandy's rocket, though he does try to make it up to him, and cause more harm in the process. He goes on another hiatus for the Chaperone and Employee of the Month, but returns to help SpongeBob prep for Halloween in Scaredy Pants. The yellow dude's terrified of just about everything, and is the laughingstock of the entire town, so Patrick tries to help him be scary for once, setting him up with a killer costume and lowering the rope he was tied to into the Krusty Krab to scare everyone. Now, he does get stung by a jellyfish, and it gives up SpongeBob's disguise, but that's not really Patrick's fault. He was being incredibly helpful and selfless in trying to make his friend enjoy the holiday more. It's a pretty darn peak look if you ask me. I Was a Teenage Gary. SpongeBob and Patrick go away to a jellyfishing convention and leave Squidward to watch Gary, which he just doesn't do. Patrick, though, is pretty irrelevant, so Bleak. SB-129. Squidward time travels to avoid his neighbors since they won't leave him alone, and while the future is Patrick-less, this prehistoric world is home to a more primitive starfish. He's right by SpongeGar's side the entire time and just follows his example, so sidekick tier it is. Patrick's not all that fond of karate, but he does dream just like the rest of us, as seen in the Sleepy Time episode. SpongeBob hops through a bunch of different people's dreams, and Patrick's is the most simple, a plain white void where he's riding a mechanical seahorse that he still needs quarters to operate. Why? He's just minding his business, nothing wrong with this role, but he's insignificant and bleak. Suds. SpongeBob gets sick, and Patrick does his best to convince him not to go see a doctor, instead opting to dress as one himself to try and find a cure. I mean, his reasoning makes sense. He's afraid of the doctor and wants his friend to avoid whatever suffering he expects there, so the intention's good, but his little test trials are basically SpongeBob torture, and sending the message to kids that doctor equals bad is a pretty terrible example, so... Valentine's Day. SpongeBob gives basically everyone in Bikini Bottom a gift for Valentine's Day, and plans something huge for Patrick, but the plans don't go as he expected, and it makes him feel forgotten about and unloved, which he will not stand for. Bro gets fuming mad and lets it out on the entire carnival, rampaging through crowds, decimating everything, and cornering all these poor people on the boardwalk, until thankfully his gift shows up and he says,
"You didn't have to give me anything."
An admittedly funny ending, but a horrible example of what you should do when you don't get what you want. He could care less about the paper, but in ARG, he and SpongeBob are playing some treasure hunting game, Mr. Krabs thinks it's reality, and so he takes the two aboard as his crew to look for some real treasure. Patrick does make some stupid mistakes throughout the episode, the whole Whist debacle being the funniest, but he does do a fair amount of brunt work for the crew, and I'll give him props. Now, he does encourage SpongeBob to look at the map, which isn't the greatest or most loyal example, but he's still more than helpful overall. Rock bottom. After a fun day at Glove World, SpongeBob and Patrick get on the wrong bus and end up in the creepy town of Rock Bottom, with seemingly no way to get back home. Patrick, however, ends up getting on the bus once they split up, but he can't get the thing to stop to get his friend on board, so he basically just taunts SpongeBob until he finds his own way to get back. He tries to be helpful, and is seen still trying to get help even at the end, but it doesn't earn him more than a sidekick tier. Texas. Sandy gets homesick and wants to move back to her hometown in Texas, so Patrick comes up with the idea to get her to stay, bring some Texas down to Bikini Bottom. They set up a party for her at the Krusty Krab, but she leaves before she gets to see it, so Patrick discovers the effectiveness of the rage bait, and he and SpongeBob use it to lure her there.
What am I now?
Stupid?
No, I'm Texas!
What's the difference?
Now, SpongeBob has to clutch up to win the race to the Krusty Krab, and Patrick gets wrecked, but all the strategizing was kinda his idea, so he's at least sorta helpful. He doesn't take the small walk, but he does make a smaller appearance in Fools in April. After Squidward absolutely humiliates our sponge dude, he heads over to the pineapple to apologize, and thinks he's talking to SpongeBob out in the yard because of the hat, but it turns out to be Patrick, who's randomly doing landscaping at Spongie's house. The weird part is, he knows his buddy is really upset, and instead of trying to comfort him, he's just digging a hole. Pretty bleak. Neptune Spatula. The two check out the fry cooking museum. SpongeBob pulls out the golden spatula like King Arthur, and it summons Neptune, who challenges the spatula wielder to a cook-off. At first, though, he's skeptical that SpongeBob did it, and is kind of a jerk to him, so Patrick stands up for his friend over and over again, which gets him punished each time, but he doesn't back down. And at the actual competition, when everyone's rooting against SpongeBob, he remains on his side and cheers him on, being a great friend, and definitely earning a spot in Peak. Hooky, a textbook example of Patrick being a bad influence. He teaches SpongeBob that these dangerous fishing lines are a carnival, where you get free food and ride up and down for funsies. And after Mr. Krabs warns them of the very real dangers, Patrick talks him into going back, and it almost costs him his frickin' life. One of his worst looks if you ask me, and since he's not in the sister episode, Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 2, that's all of them, and there you have it. And if you want to see more ranking videos just like this one for all your favorite cartoons and animated movies, please be sure to hit that subscribe button here on Toon Tears. This is the first of 5 videos that'll be dropping over the next week to show you all the different types of content I'll be making on this new channel, and you won't want to miss any of them. But with that said, leave some requests for future videos down in the comments so I can better gauge some interest, and please have a fantastic rest of your day. I'll see you later.